Hi, my name is Hannah. Welcome back to my channel, Savage Reads. If you are new here, since it is my first normal wrap-up of the year, I'll let you know what to expect on my channel. I typically do videos like this. I usually start with an update on some projects I'm working on and then review usually around 4 books that I've read in the past week or so, and I would love to get your thoughts on these books if you've read them, or recommendations if you have them for me. To start out, I do want to do an update on embroidery. I have started a new project, and I am making this for my amazingly talented younger sister. I have lots of sisters, and the one just younger than me is an amazingly talented singer, and she was asking if I could make something for her voice studio. So I have a vocal anatomy chart. So I've sketched it all out and I'm filling it in, but I figure since it's an anatomy chart, I can kind of go a little crazy with the colors. And so I'm going with kind of bright colors. I feel like if I can do the different parts in different colors, it'll help them be easier to point out if she was looking at it. And I'm hoping it turns out okay. I'm kind of excited. This is very different than some of the projects that I have done recently. I have stuck with a lot of nature, and this is going to be quite the different thing. So I'm getting going on that project, but I have read some interesting books, and not just from the last week. Over Christmas, I did not read a ton. My daughters were home. We were so busy watching the extended versions of Lord of the Rings and playing games and going out and doing things that I didn't read very much. But I have a couple books from the end of December I want to talk about, and books that I've read this last week that I am really excited to get to. So let's jump into the first one. This first book that I want to talk about was a recommendation that I found on Jolene's list of best Canadian literature. So if you want to check out her channel, it's Bookworm Adventure Girl, and I will link that down below. She has great recommendations on Canadian literature. And this book is 7 Fallen Feathers, Racism, Death, and Hard Truths in a Northern City by Tanya Talaga. And this ended up sneaking its way right at the end of the year onto my list of best nonfiction of 2024 that I read. This is following a town in Canada where over a 10-year period, 7 students were found dead, and it is talking about the systems that would allow these kinds of things to take place and how things were not properly handled, and just that legacy of residential schools and how they continue to affect Indigenous youth nowadays. It was really tragic. These are the kinds of stories that as a mother you never ever want to hear, but it was so powerfully written and so relevant to see these consequences of different programs that have been put in place, and to see these children that are still struggling with the effects. I have heard quite a few people talk about this next book, and I finally decided to get to it. I read The Collected Regrets of Clover by Mickey Brammer. And this book is following a woman who is a death doula, and she takes care of people and helps them make that transition into death. So Clover spends so much time with the dead that she doesn't really have a life of her own, and this is her story of going out and starting to make a life for herself. I'm a bit of a sucker for some stories of women who decide to go out and live life for the first time, and I think that that can be a really delightful kind of book. That was a lot of the reason I found this very appealing, but I thought that the discussion around death and what makes life meaningful was good. Was it as profound as I think the author thought it was? No, I don't know if it brought anything super new to the subject for me, but I thought it was nice. I liked seeing the character growth of her learning that the regrets that her clients have at the end of their life are things that she can go out and fix now. I thought it was really kind of a sweet, fun read, and I was happy I picked it up. I got this next recommendation from the channel Triumphal Reads, and this is Barron's Money, Power, and Corruption in America's Food Industry by Austin Frerick. And this one also snuck onto my best nonfiction that I read in 2024. It was the last book that I read of the year, and I didn't actually read it. I listened to it while painting this wall behind me. So this book follows 7 different corporate titans and how they gained their monopolies over parts of the food industry, and also the devastation that they have left behind in especially rural communities. And I thought that the author did a really great job at making it feel personal and at the same time giving us a portrait of how these people work. I thought it was an interesting look at how the process of food production has been messed up and how there are ways that we could fix that and support smaller farmers that do things in a more ethical way and provide jobs and community for people. And a lot of policies that have been enacted have made it far too easy for a few people to get a monopoly over everything and to drive out prosperity in rural America. So just a note on the narrator of the audiobook. I thought the narrator did a really great job at making this book fun and engaging, but it also was maybe not quite the tone I am used to in this kind of nonfiction book, just the tone of voice in which it was read. And so that was a bit interesting. I don't know why that stood out to me, but as I was listening and painting, I kept thinking, I feel like a romantic comedy would work really well in this voice, but I'm kind of here for it because it's making this book about food production feel as fun and interesting as a romantic comedy, if that makes sense. So the narration was a little different, which I actually kind of appreciated. So it ended up being a really good one. Now, Melinda at A Web of Stories has recommended the book Rules of Civility by Amor Towles. This book is following our main character, Katie Content, in 1937 in kind of high-class New York City. Now, this book was kind of an interesting one for me because honestly, I don't quite know what else happened other than that. I mean, she has a friend who got in a car accident at one point. It's a lot of people in rooms talking kind of book, but the way that the author managed to paint a picture of the time and place was so engaging that I couldn't put it down, and I had a great time with it. I think there were some layers in there talking about what kind of public persona we put forward and what really matters in relationships. Like, I think there were some things in there, but I was kind of just along for the ride. I mean, the vibes were good. It was a very fun and engaging kind of book, but I don't know if I quite connected with any of the deeper messaging in there or thought a lot happened. It still ends up being like a 4 out of 5 stars for me because I couldn't put it down, and it really transported me into a different time and place, and that's great. And that is what I have read the last little while. I will be back soon with another book wrap up. And if you have read any of these books or have thoughts on them, please let me know in the comments down below, and I will see you all on the next one.